We're back.
We're back. Wait, do we clap?
We can. It's just as a random. That's the intro, actually, for the
That is
show.
our
It's just
intro,
like
that's
our
true.
random clapping. All right. So we're back. We are back from hiatus, self-imposed. We had lots of stuff going on.
I
had to-
graduated.
You had to graduate. So that was kind of important. A little bit. Trying to get back in the swing of things. We're going to have our regular segments. First is you talking about art, me asking a question about art, and then some pop culture, but this is art-related pop culture. Yes. So, all right. Emiko, what do you have for us for art?
All right. So, as you just mentioned, we had a little hiatus because I was busy graduating, and so one of the things that the thing that I had to do in order to graduate was have a thesis exhibition.
Okay.
And that is often the case for a lot of art schools. But I don't quite know exactly like if it's exactly the same as other art schools, but specifically at CalArts, halfway through your bachelor's, so like by your third year, you need to do a mid-residency show. And you need to showcase like basically what you've been able to learn from the 2 foundational years of CalArts, and then your final thesis is like, all right, so this is how I'm leaving, and this is the kind of work that I'm going to bring out into the world now that I'm leaving CalArts.
Bye, CalArts.
Bye bye.
Awesome. So is the point of it to show what you've, I don't know. Did you learn anything there? Is it like, what are they trying to get out of you? Like your growth, or like if they had any effect on you, or if you think,
Right.
I don't know. Like, yeah.
Well, like many things in art and CalArts, it's all up to your interpretation.
Okay.
So for some people like myself, what I took from that was, okay, so through CalArts, I had a lot of really cool opportunities to experiment and try new things and collab, and lots of opportunities to do things that I normally in my everyday life wouldn't be able to do, and like I got a lot of great value and experience out of that. But I realized through half of those experiences that those weren't my jam, those weren't my thing, and by experimenting with so many different things, I felt honestly like there were points where I was losing myself and the original reason why I did art. And so my mid-res was kind of me showing like, okay, so I've done all this experimenting, but I'm feeling kind of lost here. And then my thesis show was like, okay, now I'm going back to my roots and back to why I came here in the first place. And I wanted to showcase that, like, even though yes, technically I'm kind of reverting back, I still grew so much that like now the work that I came in with is completely different now, even though like I'm still going back to that same style and stuff. Now for other people, sometimes it doesn't change anything, and they're just like, well, I just want to graduate. I want to get a piece of paper, and so I'm just gonna make something to make something. But like, I mean, there are plenty of other people. Like, I mean, I saw all the shows from my peers, and they were all incredible in their own ways. And so growth is a very subjective term when it comes to artistry. So
Okay.
Everyone grew in different ways and showcased that in their thesis in different ways.
So do you think that you talked about going back to where your original style, but like, even though and I think you're talking about even though you went back to your original style, it's still evolved from where because of your exposure to all these other things, and the journey back to it actually added to it, right?
Yeah.
Because usually I'm trying to, in my head, trying to understand. So you experimented with all these other, possible ways of working with your art, through your art, however you say it. But in the end, you found that the way that you can best express yourself, it was the original style. But what would you say the influences of the things that you like, not rejected, but like you tried, but they weren't your thing? But how did those, even though you don't hold on to those things, how do you think those things have changed change you, or grew you, or whatever you want to say, influenced you? There you go. Sure.
Well, I mean, the easiest way I can answer that is with specifics first, and then I'll give a general answer
Sure.
to that. But so specifically the art style that I came in with, and that like is my thing, and like you said, the way that I express myself in my work the best is realism. And originally when I came in, I had taken a lot of, technical classes, and I had a lot of foundation in technical skills. And I prided myself a lot on that. And like, I would make my works really like almost hyper realistic kind of thing. But to a degree, there was always a sense of like, you could tell that the drawing was a drawing. You could tell the painting was a painting. Like as realistic as I tried to make my subjects, I always showed that it wasn't completely perfect. But back then, I didn't recognize why that was the case and why that was an important part of my work. At the time, I was like, I like realism, so I'm just going to do that. But why do I do that? But CalArts showed me through the different things I was exposed to the true value of why I do that. It was through like trying different styles of like abstract expressionism and like painting and like sculpting and even doing like oh my gosh, like I did welding. Like I did all sorts of random things, but I was like, this doesn't really feel like me. I don't know, but I realized through all those things that I think I speak a lot more, not just with the style, but with the materials that I use in my work. Like, and I try to make it a point to my viewers that the material actually matters a lot more in how I convey a message or how I convey something in my work. So like so that's why like my work now, I mean we can probably put up references to this, but my work earlier was super like clean almost. Like if you can remember like my charcoal drawings of like the glass and like my headphones, super clean and not really but almost like too clean, kind of like kind of made it a little stale, not really interesting. Sterile. There you go. Yeah. But then like if you were to take a look at the works that I did for my thesis, I mean, like, yes, they're realistic, but like but it's, you can tell that I'm purposefully like not making it look like perfect. So
one thing I did notice is that you used to be, it was all charcoal and colored pencils and graphite stuff, but now you do use these different types of material to get your realistic in your realism, right?
Yes.
Like I think you use like your liquid graphite in some things, and I'm like that, and that is almost, as I think you explained it to me, but as it looked like to me, it's almost like watercolor graphite. I mean, it's like
pretty much
liquid graphite, right? So it's runny. It's like it's not a precise material.
Yes.
Like the precision that you talked about that gave you kind of a sterile feeling where it was like so precise and so controlled.
Yeah.
You're saying you're getting realism without the material being so without being that in my head, that's a really hard concept. Like realism without precision.
Right, but that's exactly what makes my work, and that's what CalArts taught me was like, yeah, like I like you can have rigidity in your work and you can have like detail and things like that, but conceptually it doesn't really leave for a lot of room for like interpretation or imagination or conversation to come out of your work if it's just like kind of that one thing. So there needs to be some sort of element that makes it a little more like freeing, kind of free thought running kind of thing. And I realized it's through the material that really makes that work for me. My subjects might come across as super just like black and white. Okay, that's a person, that's a thing. But the material makes you think, oh, there's something more.
That's really interesting, because we talked about this, and like part of art and part of what you try to do with your art is to have a conversation around it. You want people to discuss it and think about it. And thinking back to your really like the headphones and the glass stuff, it's really cool and it looks really great, but it doesn't really spark a conversation. At most you go, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Right. But it didn't really, but like when we look at the ones like your hyperrealism, and we'll show it of like your grandfather and his dad on the thing, like it's realistic, but the material in it isn't precise, isn't precise, and leaves enough
to make the audience
and you're like,
question,
why is that
why
more
did you
fuzzy than the other parts? Or like there's just details. It's realistic, but the details are subtler, more subtle
Mm-hmm.
because of the material. And
Correct.
so therefore you can ask questions about why certain parts may be more, like precise than others, because you can make some parts are more precise than others, and you can switch back materials and things like that and have different combinations. And so it provokes
The viewer.
the viewer to ask you questions about why did you choose this particular thing to be this way.
Yeah.
Because like when we show it, your grandfather is a lot less, he's more fuzzy than your your great grandfather is
Yes.
more fuzzy than your grandfather.
Yeah, but
because you know him more than your great grandfather. And so
Yes.
that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point earlier about how the earlier works that I did that were more technically impressive, the only questions I would really get were kind of surface level, like, how did you do that? Like, oh, like I can't even draw a stick figure. That's where I get those compliments and things like that. And I'm like, that's so nice.
But that's not what I want to do.
That's not really fulfilling for me. I would like you to ask me more about like my thought process, but I can only make you ask about those things if I come up with thought-provoking things. So that's why. That was the launch into, okay, CalArts, I'm gonna experiment with things because I need to do something interesting, but I didn't know what that was, and I didn't realize that I already had that. I just needed to dig deeper into it. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. And so, anything else you want to talk about with your, your thesis or anything like that?
So sorry. So the main points that I wanted to bring in with this about talking about my thesis. Yes, it was a big moment for me. I graduated with it. I got high passes, all that good stuff. It was awesome. But like I think. And I think this is partially for like our non-artist audience, but also for like our artist audience, people who like are considering or trying to get into installing works and setting up shows and things like that. Y'all, it's so important. The space and the gallery and like the side, everything, all about that matters so much, and that feeds so much into how your work gets conveyed, right? So I'm going to explain a little bit of some stuff around like CalArts. So the way that so when a student has a show that's required, so it's a mid-residency or a thesis show, at the very beginning of the semester you get an email and they're like, okay, we're running like a little raffle ticket thing where like you where you're gonna get your name and it's gonna be assigned to a time, and then you come into the art office at that time, and then you get to sign up with your name and the date and the space that you would like to use.
Of what's left.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because like for me, right, my last name is a Y, and even though it was a randomized raffle, most of the time I would just get the leftovers, and so I had to work with whatever I had, because everybody else had chosen things like that. So I bring this up because during my first show ever, my mid-residency show, I made the mistake of not checking and looking at the spaces beforehand, because obviously I'd been to the shows, other people's shows in those spaces, but I went into those shows not in the mindset of, oh, I want to like measure the space and I want to see how my work would look. I was focused on whatever work was already existed in there, so I didn't even think about that. So then when I was setting up for my show and I was getting the space.
The first one, the
first one, yeah,
not this one.
The first one, yeah. I had an idea of what I wanted because, like, well, the pieces that I have are relatively smaller, and like, the concepts that I'm working with, I think they would work better in like a smaller space, like not necessarily confined, but more so just like treat it like a room kind of feeling, because my concepts were just so personal that it would need to be in a smaller space, but like, I didn't quite get the right measurements, and then like, some technical issues happened where like they gave me the wrong key and like all these things. It was really stressful. But so doing the research of like the proper research and properly like looking at the space and looking in the space and like really taking it in and figuring out, okay, how can my work fit in here, and how does this space make my work.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Now for my final thesis, this was interesting because I think so at CalArts, sorry, I have to add so much context
That's
to this.
okay.
At CalArts, there are let's see, 2, 4, 6. Yeah, there are technically 6 galleries total.
Okay.
Um
Well, there's like
oh, 7.
that L one.
There's an unpopular 7th one that nobody really knows. It's like it's a hole in the wall kind of thing.
But they're no. Okay, so
No. So
okay,
it's,
tell me which one. Yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
to know because
I'm taking you through.
Yes,
Yeah.
take me through
So at CalArts, there are 2 really large ones.
the downstairs
The
ones.
downstairs ones,
Yep.
they're called D300 and D301.
Yes,
And those are the really they're not like tall, but they're really wide.
Those are
And
big rooms.
Yeah, big
Those-
rooms, really long walls. So really good for like sculptural work
Yes.
and a lot of if you do large scale paintings, like great for that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Just generally installations and performances work best in those.
Yeah, like there like that one room always has those really big installations where there's multiple projectors and some things set up, and like one was like set up like a maze one time. I mean, like not maze, but like there were walls of things in the middle, and
Yes.
So okay, so those 2 are the big ones. That
Right.
those I remember. Then there's the L one, which is like an open.
It's actually a hallway.
It's in the hallway. It's in the main hallway, and that. We can show. I mean, we maybe talk about it later. But your friend was very cool. That one.
Yes. Oh
So-
yeah, we'll talk about that later.
But,
Yeah.
So there's that one. Those are 3 downstairs.
Those are no. Then there's the main gallery, of course.
Well, that huge. Oh yeah. I guess that's. I don't really think of it.
It is called the main gallery, but I don't.
But even when you show your stuff there, you don't get the main gallery to yourself. It's like there's.
It's shared with
it's
people.
Like, there, like I remember when during your mid-res time, there was like about 4, like 2 on each side.
Yes.
At least 2. There might have been more, like 3 on this side and 2 on the other side. But there's multiple people that have installed in this one space.
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever? I can't imagine. Did you ever want the main gallery?
No. Which I will go into like the psychology of all these spaces later, but I just want to like give a general thing.
That's
but yeah,
4 downstairs.
Yeah, but the thing about the main gallery to know is like yes, it is essentially you have like an entire like hallway to yourself, and it's like it's humongous. We can pull up a picture of it. It's huge.
But it makes your work look small.
It does, yes.
Because it just gets lost. I mean, unless you have giant pieces.
Sure, yeah, but you can also use the space in between. You don't just have to use the walls. You can use like
Oh yeah, people put stuff in the middle. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry,
but anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
And then there are 3 more upstairs.
Okay,
so there's the
just
one
3.
that I used for my thesis show. That was A402. It's kind of in the back, and it's a little bit smaller. So it's a hole in the wall kind of thing. It's deep. Yes, correct. That was the word I was going to use. Yeah. It feels when you walk into it, it shouldn't feel that big.
No, it feels narrow, but it feels like long.
Long. Yes. Yeah. And then there are 2 smaller ones, the Mint Gallery and the Lion Gallery, the same size galleries, the smallest ones, and they're the most they look like the size of like a regular art studio at CalArts. But they're just blank. So basically, just like honestly, you could just practice. You know, if you're an art student, you have your own studio, and you're working, and you want a gallery in those spaces. Just practice putting your stuff up in your studio, and you know what to do.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's the rundown. Oh, and then there's technically an 8th one. Sorry, there's an 8th Stevenson Blanche.
I don't know where's
Exactly.
That one?
No one really knows about that one
okay.
because that one is not used for the required galleries for like students. It's for like that's the space that I used or like that like people can like request for like if a class has like finals and they want to showcase their work or something like that, or if you by yourself just want to showcase something that's outside of your final thesis or your mid-res or something like that. Yeah. So anywho, it would be really good for us to have visuals at these, but yes. So now I kind of want to get into like the psychology of these rooms and sort of the reputation around them too.
Okay.
I think that's really important. So D300 and D301 are the big boys. Everyone calls them the big boys, which is funny because technically that would be the main gal, but because it's an enclosed space. And usually enclosed spaces should naturally be small. They're so wide that it's like, oh, those are big. gotta fill it up. And often, and yes, and so like I said, there's often like the feeling that, oh, so I need to fill this up. Like, oh, like filling it up is going to be a really daunting experience. And so oftentimes, especially because there's already a reputation built up of so many people, like you said, putting up all these crazy installations, transforming the room into a whole experience kind of thing. Yeah. Now, we'll pull my friend up, Kyle Savira. He was one of my peers. He was in masters, and he did sculptures. That was his thing. And what he chose D300 for his final thesis. And was that room filled? Not at all. It was most of it was pretty empty, and his sculptures only took up like small portions, and they would take up small portions of the walls. But it was still a really good show because he knew, yes, like this is a big space, but I don't have to fill it up because that's not what my work is about. My work it has a lot to do with with life and breathing. And so leaving space in between his sculptures was necessary for that to come about in his work.
So even though if he had his stuff would have fit in a smaller place,
yes,
but it wouldn't have been the show he wanted because there wasn't enough space between the things.
Like for example, if I can imagine this because I've been to a studio which is smaller and that's where he keeps all his stuff. It's like you walk in, it feels like a jungle. You feel like enclosed. You feel like it's like kind of suffocating. And he's like, that's not what I want people to experience when they're looking at my work. I want people to walk freely around it and feel like they can, like the sculptures can guide them through and have an experience like that. So of course, if he wanted, the whole overwhelming thing,
like suffocating claustrophobic feeling,
he as an artist would know, oh, I'm going to use a smaller space like the Mint or something. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So again, as we'll see as I explain more of this, it really has to do with the artist and like the works and the concepts that they have and ideas that they have for their show and how they envision not just this is the thing. You can't only just envision what your pieces look like, but you also need to envision how viewers are going to interact with your work and how you would prefer them to and in order to get the most out of your work. So, yeah.
Cool.
So those are the big boys.
Mm-hmm.
Then the L shape. The L shape is really fascinating because we'll pull up. We're really just plugging all my friends because they're awesome. But yeah, I had a friend, Sophia Beale. She's a sculpture.
What are you doing? Oh.
Of the building of the sculpture, which was really cool for people to see the process behind it. But it was all just one giant sculpture, and it was something that you could interact with. But it was really cool. It was in the L shape. So the L shape, it's not really a room. It's just more of like a corner.
The corner of the hallway. It's where the hallway turns. Turns right into the... Yeah. It goes from the main gallery. It's the hallway from the main gallery to the Ds, the big boys.
Exactly,
and it's just a turn, but it's a space that...
that right there is so important because that's the turn to go into the big boys.
Yeah.
That's the turn before. So you've got to make something that makes you stop before you go into the big ones, And she really did that. So, yeah. But yeah, so that was one that you guys were able to see. But
I want to say something about her. It's like, so everyone has seen the weird thing in a public space. Someone builds some gigantic steel girder thing, and then call it modern art. This was a contraption, but the concept behind it and the execution of it was really artistic. It was thought provoking. It was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It was like she had something she was trying to convey, and you could see how she tried to convey it, and like just the complexity. Yeah. It was really this like mechanically intermediated human interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like
fascinating.
It was really interesting. And then for me, I you talked about the she had the schematic. She had schematics of what she did, and I was like looking at her parts list. She had like the the Raspberry Pi and all. I'm like, oh my, this is awesome. And then when the other thing is, it requires people to be in the piece to
the fact that a work can only work
with
if
two people. Two people have to be in there,
and they have to communicate with each other in order to make a machine work.
Yeah, and then even if you're not the people in it, you can watch the interaction. You can see the person moving the controls, and then you can see how that controls is working the machine, and then how it interacts with the other participant. It was that was one of the the coolest weird conceptual kind of thing that I saw I ever saw at your school. The other girl, the Ariel, the one with
Ariel
that was last year, her mid-res with the claymation stuff, that was crazy amazing also too. But those stood out as some just pieces that were like, whoa, that was some work. Those people
was something. Yeah, for sure.
So go ahead.
No. I mean, I have similar high praise for Sophia as well. I mean, I know her more personally, and I've seen I was there helping her through this process too, because I mean, originally she had this concept and she wanted this to go a certain way, but yeah, she
was in one of your classes or just
she was in Queer Cheeks with me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, we have strange class names here and just strange classes overall, but yeah. I'm done with those.
Yeah.
but yeah, no, she was really conflicted with how she was going to do that, because I think a big part of it was she wanted her piece to be welcoming to people. Because
it could look scary too.
It could look really daunting. What is that thing? Wait, there are chairs. Wait, do we sit in it? Oh, what do we do? She wanted her audience to feel like, oh, you can be a part of this. So that's why she was like, oh, I should add the schematics. I should add the sketchings so that people can see my process of oh, I want this to be something for people to sit down at. And
some people, I was watching other people just watching, and people were hesitant to go you're saying I could see that she needed to make it or how she wanted to make it, but it would be hard because it was a little bit daunting, but for us,
right,
mechanical computer stuff, like we said, the schematic stuff actually drew me in, because I'm the technical nerd, and then I was just excited to see what it did. And so people like I said, I saw people before and they didn't know really what to make of it and what to do, but I was like, I told, it was Mom and your sister did it first.
Yeah.
And I said, go do it. It looks really cool. And then they had fun doing it. And it was
exactly.
Yeah. So I hope. Yeah. Anyway.
We look forward to seeing what she does next. Yeah. Sorry, we're just fangirling over all of my friends.
Sorry.
But so the L shape, So she used that to its full capacity in that
definitely.
sense. Other people I've seen mainly do really, really smaller pieces and kind of treat it almost like a fan, the stairs, and then there's family picture frames going up it. They treat it like that kind of, and it's if there was a staircase that would work. I don't know how I feel about it just doing that. I don't know. But yeah, the L shape, I don't know. I personally have never thought of my work at all. I've thought of my work in D300. I've thought of my work in the mint and the lime and the other places. But L shape and main gal have always been off limits to me, because I just felt I don't know. I don't feel like I have interactive enough work for those spaces to be best fitting for me. I'm sure, I mean, clearly with Sophia, it works great. But yeah. And then the main gal is also really complicated, but I'm also going to give a really great example of somebody who really used it well.
Oh.
It's my peer classmate. I'm sure you remember her, Jaden Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was great because she had this genius idea to put mirrors underneath her pieces, and so then when you're walking through and it's as a hallway, and you just have your pieces on the wall. But she had the mirrors, and then she had mirrors on top, and so they would it would give off the illusion that that the pieces took up more space than it already did. And it was whoa, really cool stuff. She also had some pieces here and there in the middle of the place, and so it was ooh, it kind of felt like a sacred ground to walk on here. You don't want to walk around it, because this is the full. She's really using the full space. So yeah. Main gal, that one is really a challenge, particularly with people who don't have installations, and things like that. But people but I've seen so many times people with paintings and just
Yeah,
pictures and
and
things like
pictures,
that.
yeah.
It still works.
It works because for when I've seen it, it typically works when like you're trying to guide somebody through like a sequence or something or a progression or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But like you said, I've seen other one. I do remember some that were like there were like structures and stuff that like built as part of the thing, and you could
Yeah.
use that space to build. Like there was an interactive like a computer made out
Yeah,
of
yeah,
pieces
yeah.
that you could build. Like you built, it was like a wooden computer kind of. I forget exactly what it, but that was interesting too. But that was in the main gallery, but it wasn't just up against the wall. I
Right.
guess what I'm saying is like if you think of like you're saying, typical paintings and drawings and photography just on that wall seems like it gets lost in that space if
It has the potential to, but at the same time though, I've seen so many successful pieces in there, and I think another big part, right? Because again, this isn't a room; it's an open space. I think you think so much about as an artist like how the viewers are going to walk into a space too, right? You don't necessarily walk into the main gallery, you pass it, and then there's like something catches you at the corner of your eye kind of thing. So like you can't have works that are necessarily too small, but you also can't have works that are like giant, because then you're like, okay, we get it. Like, but like the most successful ones that I've seen have especially been the ones where like there's like a piece on like the very end of like the hall, like before it turns into the L shape. And so as you're entering, before you even see the rest of it, you're like, oh, what is that? Oh, there's a show here. And then you want to turn and then see the rest going on. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Again, I don't really have too deep of an analysis into it, into like the L shape and the main gal, just because I've never thought of my work in this context. But anyway, mint and lime gal, those are the tinier ones. And those are the ones, man, it's really, I feel like they're more popular with the mid-residency shows. And then with the final thesis shows, that's when people are thinking like, ooh, I need to go bigger. And so then they think I need to go to D300 or something like that, which not necessarily true. You still need to think about your work, but yeah. But yeah, it's definitely for it's you really
the ones that I've seen there it's like very thematic, like in a space. It's themes. The whole space is themed like one thing. Like the ones of your one like the one I would talk about, Ariel,
yes,
who made the claymation stuff.
Film.
She had the claymation movie playing, but then she had all the pieces that she used to create the movie along those things, and
kind of treated it almost like a little museum.
Yes, and it was like a museum, and yes, exactly. And then the other people that I've seen someone basically looked like it was somebody's room that was just then it was the art and the pieces that made up a room, or the thoughts of their mind, like the corners of their mind or something. It was like something about their mind, but it was
similar to what I did for my mid-res, but yeah,
it looked like a room and stuff like that. Yours was very like it looked like the space was. Yeah, it's just like you take up the whole space as part of it's cohesive or something.
Which is interesting, because normally that's kind of the thing that people think of when they think of like the D300 stuff. It's like, we need to fill this up. We need to make it, because it's so big, we got to use it to its full capacity. When it's like, well, with like smaller galleries, it's easy to.
Yeah.
So it's like, like, is that taking advantage of that space, or does that actually work for what you're gonna do? And then but then it's also like, if you don't, with a smaller space like that, it's like, oh, if I don't fill this up, I feel stupid, kind of.
I can see that. Yeah.
Because it's like, well, how hard is it to fill up this space, dude? Like, come on. Yeah, but like, I mean, I've also seen similar things where like people have just put in one sculpture, and then that's it, and you're like, oh, okay, I can see that working. Like, it's either like super minimal, or it's like completely maximalist, and it's just like, yeah, it's very funny how the smallest and then the largest galleries have very similar kind of ways of thought around the process of installing in the spaces, like especially when it comes to trying to fill it up or leave room for something. Yeah. Then the last one, A402, that's the one that I used for my final thesis show. That one is really, so I've actually just been told by like the people at the art office, like that is the best one in their opinion. And most of the time when they tell me that, they mean it in the sense that it's good for showing films and projecting things.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's so interesting. I'm not doing that. Cool. But like, I understand what they mean though, because because unlike other spaces where you walk in and it's kind of just like space,
Yeah.
done. This one, it starts with like an entrance kind of feeling.
Yeah. It has an
But
entry
then
feel.
all of a sudden at the end, it opens up.
Yeah, it does have an
and it
entry
has like
feel.
one extra corner, and you're like, wait, what? Where did that corner come from? I wasn't, huh? Yeah. So it kind of, yeah. So it's like you walk in and it's like, ooh, you already feel like you're entering into like something. Ooh, okay, what's going on? Ooh, there's this thing. Oh, there's this thing. And then you walk in just a little further, and then it opens up suddenly. And it's like, oh, there's more. Yeah. And because there's another corner there, then the person can turn around and be like, oh, there's something else that I couldn't have seen it when I walked in because it's backwards. Yeah. So yeah. So it's I'd say the more unique space compared to the other ones. And that wasn't necessarily my thinking when I chose it. I was more so like, hey, I think that this would be good for
At one point, you
how
did
I
think you were
want
going to
to-
have a film too. You were thinking about
That's
it.
true. I
You
was
were
thinking about
considering it.
that. And then but then when I decided against that, I was like, no. I think just with my pieces alone, this is going to work great because I would say it for like my type of work and anybody who like does paintings like that, similar to Evan's mid-res that he did in that show in that space. They're really good for chronology and really good for taking an audience through a journey there. It's a strange setup at first, but like you walk in and it's like the space automatically
It lends
guides
itself
you.
to that.
And so that takes away that work from you as the artist. You're like, I just have to set it up, and then the space is going to tell the people automatically how they're supposed to go about it. So
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Cool.
So yeah, think about the space people, artists when you're setting up, and the non-artists, like, hey, think about that next time you see a gallery and you're like, yo, why does this like feel good?
Okay. Cool.
Do you have any
So-
closing thoughts on that?
No, that makes complete sense to me. But so when we go to my question, it goes really off of this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Should I go?
Sure.
All right. So my question. Oh my gosh, we still do this. So my question is like, because you told me that you wanted to talk about space,
Sure.
and my side of things is okay. So you, as the artist, knew the space
Yes.
and set things up because you knew the space. But now, when art curators come along and put together this show, they're doing something totally different. Are they ruining the artist's conception of what they thought? Are they putting their own interpretation and putting their own, their thought process and their desires into the pieces now because they have now broken what the artist wanted to from like a place? Because like if someone said, "Oh, I really love the piece of your grandfather and your father," or not grandfather and great grandfather, and then they took it and put it in a place. It doesn't have its original intent because it no longer lives in the way that you originally set it up.
Mm-hmm.
So what does the artist feel about that, and what is the curator or the is that the name? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, the
is
curator.
that the curator,
Yeah.
whoever putting together the exhibit? They're doing something. And so like I think back, it actually caused me to think back to all the galleries we've been to.
Mm-hmm.
And like, did the artist want it to be put there? Is it like wrong? I mean, is it like, does it detract from what they were trying to say by putting it in the place that the curator put it? Like,
I can imagine some of those artists probably would have been like, "You really put me next to that?"
yeah, exactly. That kind of who you put them next to,
Yeah.
right? Chronologically, if you put it
You put me in the contemporary art section,
or
dude.
something. And like, why did you put me in surrealism? That's not my work. Or but it looks like to everybody else it's surrealism or whatever.
Sure.
Whatever. It's like, why are you putting me there? Why did I get like? I don't. And
Well-
like you said, the space too. Like, what if they're not giving you enough space to interact or think through? Because you remember those giant pillow things that we saw in Chicago or whatever? Like, what if those things were supposed to be further apart and you were supposed to be able to get in between them to get a different feel? Like you were saying about your friend Kyle.
Yeah.
Like if someone took his pieces and put them, put them in a room that was smaller and put them next to each other, then they don't get to breathe, and then they don't get to say what he wanted to say. That's so. That's my question. It's like, what are other people doing to your works when they do something to your work and put it in a different context?
This is getting into the corporate side of the art industry then.
Well, is our museums corporate?
Well,
do you
what would be
consider
considered? Well, that would be considered from an artistic perspective, though.
Okay,
you know?
because
that's essentially being like, we're putting all of our stuff to like this giant organization kind of thing,
Okay.
and they have their own like ideas for what they want for success and things like that. Because museums, they're gonna have a more generalized like popularity kind of perspective on like how they want their business to flow,
or whoever they're trying to attract,
yes,
whether they're popular or not.
Artists that they choose to like have their works curated, it's going towards a specific purpose. So as long as the artist knows that, then like, I don't know, but
but still, I'm saying, like you just walked us through the
importance
of space.
Yes,
and then but like
context around the space. Yeah,
yeah, and then they no longer have that control when someone's curating their work.
Yeah. No, and that's that's true, but okay, like best case scenario, because like I know that this happens, like some curators and artists are respectful to each other. Curators talk to the artists, especially if an artist is like has been like sought out.
Oh yeah,
and they're like,
well, the more popular you are, the more powerful. I mean, more control you you have.
Sure, but like generally, I think that it would just be morally good for any museum, especially for a museum to stay in business, to know like, hey, we're treating our artists with respect. So you would think that would, right? I mean, obviously, money hungry world, we don't know.
But there's constraints on the space too, right?
Sure.
I mean, they can try their best to accommate what the artist's wishes are, but they may not have the space, or they might not have the same
resources.
setup that like going back to the space, like Kyle's thing, where there needs to be space, but they don't have that space, so they either only show one piece and it still won't convey what he wanted to convey, or he puts the multiple pieces, but they're close together, and it's still so it's like my question to you was like the wrestling of how that makes it, or how an artist thinks about that when if you're faced with that dilemma, or what like I don't know, that's
right. Well, I mean, yeah, it's like, again, that's why I said corporate and things like that, because like when you take, like when you take something that like you hold on to, and you take a lot of pride in yourself for, and like you've always had control over it to a certain point, right?
Yeah.
And then it gets to the point where it's like, ooh, more opportunities are going to come out of this. Ooh, like I can get more exposure out of this, but at the cost of what? Of my dignity, or like, what of like,
Your
the
art.
pride that I have, for what I do, and that's a thing that like any artist who is trying to get into that path is gonna have to wrestle with. And so, yeah, I think ultimately, I think it's that's why I feel like it's important, at least like in my world, like this is why I was really personal with my final thesis, because like I don't know, like I'm like, of course I love making like my personal work and things like that, but it's good to have a balance of your personal work and then like your more kind of like general popular kind of work, to kind of balance those out. Because if you want to make work like for galleries and get galleries to choose you, of course you're gonna have to have some personal work in there. And you might want things to be a certain way, but you also need to think of the possibility that, hey, like not everything's going to work out exactly the way I want them to. So I need to make some flexibilities in my work here. So.
Okay. So that leads to another question I have later on. We can do it for a separate show, but it's like the work that you did, it's of your it's a lot of family.
Yes, it was all family.
But that, like, when it's that personal, like, is it transferable to the corporate side of the art world? I wouldn't imagine so.
Oh no.
So then, like, how do you make things personal to you, but broadly applicable, or broadly like it can touch or communicate with a lot of people? Because I could see that if you entitle it generic Japanese person, it might actually have more a broader appeal in a weird way. In a weird way.
In a really weird way.
In a weird way, because
Sure.
it's like, you know, the generic person is like a little bit more palatable or reachable than like if it's your specifically your thing, you know, your family heritage. It can't, you know, I can see from a certain perspective that it might be harder for other people to identify with it since it's so personal.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, at the same time though, this generation is really big
Oh
on
gosh, yes.
authenticity.
Okay, so yeah, that's there you go.
So-
There we go. Okay.
I could just have a Gen Z audience.
We'll go
I
through
don't
that. We'll go through that. Yeah, that's another
a whole other-
concept. So yeah. So, but no, this is like your whole space thing, and this space. That's largely that is exactly. I mean, that what we covered was exactly what I would, you know, from a non-art person's art perspective. That like that really helped me a lot to think about space and the artists, what their intent was, and how space can affect or influence the, you know, what their art is saying and how it's
Yeah. But you bring up really good points, because, you know, there are going to be situations where like you as the artist won't have control over those things anymore, and so it's important to build up those skills so that you know how to like make your work flexible enough to work in different spaces, right?
Got
you
it.
know, and make your so
makes sense.
good stuff.
Okay, so now onto my pop culture.
Sorry, I'm gonna
I
scream.
have to clap, but it's so weird. But it's the thing. It's
No,
just
it's awesome. It's
just
our thing.
it's our
It's okay.
thing.
It's okay.
Sorry. So, pop culture though, it's art culture, and this is I'm gonna just that's the shot that I want of you face palming. So. Prince, no, sorry, he's not Prince anymore because he's been like 80 years of Prince
He's
Charles.
so old.
He's sorry. So King Charles, he got his portrait made, not taken, but he has his portrait, a painting of him, and what do you have to say about this thing? Which my gosh, I don't even. It's like, this is the kind of thing where people, like the average person, goes, wow, contemporary art is trash. Well, they would probably actually say modern art, but then they would be incorrect because it's not modern art.
Good job.
It's contemporary art. So I got that going for me. At least it is contemporary art, but this is like, what the heck? Why is this considered good at all? It's so we'll put a picture up. It's King Charles largely in red, and then you can see his face pretty well, his hands pretty well, and then a butterfly on his shoulder, and the rest is just a red hot red mess of red paint. I think it's not good. It's not, well, it may be good to someone. It's not beautiful. That's what I will say. Go.
So, all I'm gonna say for now, because if I just go, I'm just gonna be really mean.
Okay.
And I
Good
don't
job
want to
not
do
being-
that. So
good job
because
controlling yourself.
I have self-control. I'm gonna say this was the wrong context for this painting.
Oh.
I'm going to say, hey, you know, if this was a piece that he wanted to do on his own, and he wanted to, you know, publicize this as his own work, not for the royal family, not hung up in like the royal, you know,
Yeah,
hall
I'll
and
put up
stuff
some
like
of those
that,
pictures. It's
you know?
like there's a whole, like, you can see the gallery. I mean, it's just all the royals, the kings and queens. They have a whole, you know, a place where they put all these portraits,
Yes.
and they look like what you expect from whatever 1500, whatever, like however far back the royal lineage goes. But it's like it's kind of what you would expect.
Yes.
It's like classical paintings of the monarchs,
Right. And
and then they're going to throw this thing in it, and good. That's
Yes.
a really kind way of putting it. It's like
no, it's
out
also
of
the most
context.
accurate way to put it
Yeah,
at this
okay,
point,
sure.
you know, because like, you know, within the like the royal the whole patriarchy or whatever of that, you know, that whole world, the tradition is a big thing. And I think this piece would, I mean, not only just kind of disrupt that tradition, but would kind of, I wouldn't say taint it, but at least like kind of just like recontextualize it in a way that isn't necessary, especially in trying to pay respects towards that world of British
Yeah,
people. I don't know.
I can see that. It's yeah. Maybe that is what. Maybe it.
I think that's what's so off-putting. I
And
think
talking about respect. That seems like a valid thing to to call out. It's like in the context of all the other of the monarchs, this just doesn't seem respectful to the rest of the
lineage.
Yeah.
All the things. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to come right out and say that because I'm not going to speak for the monarchies and things like that. I mean, according to some articles, like King Charles really loved this and he was like, "Yay, approval." I don't know. But that was just from the artist, so I don't know. Anywho, he could just be old and just be saying like, oh,
maybe he can't see color anymore and he thinks it's a black and white painting or something. Just joke. Maybe no, I'm sorry.
I don't know. Yeah, but like I said, wrong context because like I mean I could see this working as just like his own work. Like if he was doing his own exhibition and he wanted it was like all about like attacking like power and like making statements about that. Like I mean,
yeah, I could see if you had a series of other monarchs with other colors as the theme for each of them and like
or all red,
like
I don't know,
or all
and,
red,
like,
but like
whatever
way you want to go,
whatever statement he wanted to make.
But okay,
and that's the thing because like. Because that's again the context. It messes me up so much because like because this is in the context of the monarchy and it's being placed in the royal hall and stuff. It's like this dude has to be making a statement. He can't just be doing that just because he's like, ooh, I'm gonna do something different. No, he's making a statement here. Like how else are we gonna interpret that? Because it's so far out of the norm for what we normally see in those paintings. It's like, well, what are you doing? So because he's trying to make a statement, wrong context. Don't make a statement in the context of monarchy, in the context of like, this very respectable royal throne thing. Like do it on your own time. I don't know. That's all.
That's a good one. I think that's a really well
nice way to say
well said way of talking about this piece, a respectful way of talking about this piece that does it just it yeah you're like yes, if this was a piece about, if it was like some pop star, you could actually give it a fair viewing and try to figure out what he's trying to communicate with it.
Sure.
If it's just like, okay, I can Elton John with the butterfly and red and thing. It's like, right?
See it.
So you can do it,
Sure.
but it's like, this is the king and it's a portrait that's gonna be hung with all the other monarchs. Like, doesn't work. And then you get that's when you get the gut reaction to just like wail on the thing and then go, what in the world were you doing? What were you thinking?
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I
like,
don't know.
yeah, because if any of the presidents, when they sit for their paintings, if they did any of those guys did this, people would be, I would think, rightly outraged. Like, what are you doing? This is not the place for, like you're saying, it's content. This is not the place for that.
If you want, you're an artist, and I want to respect that, and you can make whatever statements you want to make, but not here, not now. So
yeah, you could stylize it, make it more contemporary, but you don't have to make it that out of place.
Yeah, no. That's the thing. Like they did that for Queen Elizabeth's painting.
Oh, I didn't look at hers.
No. Just like you can just look at all the portraits. They've changed so much throughout the years, obviously. And people have added their own contemporary like little flares
aspects
to
of it. Yeah,
flares. They add little things to it, and it's like cool. That's great, but you're not like disrespecting like the tradition and all these things. This just. I mean, I don't know. Again, I can't say what he meant by this. If he meant disrespect, if he meant to make a statement about something like that, I don't know. But it comes across as disrespectful when you do things just completely out of the norm from what is normally done. And you think, well, and also because there's that idea of the monarchy being so, dictator, like we're very disciplined and we have a way of doing things. It's like, how are they okay with this? Like, so, yeah.
Awesome.
That's I don't know. I'm trying to say it in the nicest way I can. I can go meaner.
You don't need to. No, I think that's the right level at which to come at this. Is just I like it. I like that answer better than any. I think it's a more thoughtful answer than just ripping on it. It is.
I mean, when you first showed me this, I was wailing and ripping on it.
Yeah,
that was my first initial reaction.
But that's the thing. That's what I like. That's what I appreciate about you and your art and things of that nature, is that, and especially in our 2022 24 time context is
Yeah.
that everybody, it's easy to be
To
just
react.
reactionary and just wail on it and just say all the things that come to mind. But if you sit back and think, you can honestly, you can say, yes, you can say, you can do the right thing, which is always which it's always includes subtlety.
Yes. There
And
are
there's-
always nuances.
There's nuances. That's the word I was actually looking for.
I got
there's
you.
there's always nuances to something because this works in another context.
Yes.
It's fine in another context.
And-
It's just not good, like you said, not right context in the
And honestly, listen, objectively, really good technique. It's a really good painting. It's and the guy, you can look at his other work. He's done portraits like this for so many other people, and he's very talented at what he does, and he has his own very, he has his own style. It stands out. It's unique, and he's very talented
it
in
makes
his
you
own
think
right.
and ask
He
questions
does.
like you want, but
Yes.
in the context, the questions that get raised
It
are not
just-
the questions that you
Yes.
are appropriate
Which
for the
again,
context.
it's that whole thing of like, okay, you're an artist and maybe you're doing this for some sort of attention, or oh, you're doing this to make it like a meta statement. I don't know, but again, we as the audience, this is how we would people are going to react when you do something like this out of context. So
I like it. I really appreciate the answer because it makes me think about it causes me to reflect on these types of things in a more nuanced way. And that's always been kind of my, I don't know if you want to call it a weakness, but it's
we know you're a black
it's-
and white thinker.
yeah, I'm
yes.
a black and white thinker, but then I think through all the grays in it because you guys always talk about me being black and white, and when it's right and wrong, it's
Great guy.
when it's right and wrong, I am very black and white. But when there's like this kind of topic, having me think about it in that way is
And then it
is
makes
helpful.
and it leaves room for there are multiple ways to be right, and there
Yes.
are multiple ways to be wrong.
Yeah.
There are multiple ways that this is wrong, but then there's other places where this is right.
yeah.
So
Yeah, but like I can, but
No, you
like,
can point
but
out
the
your
thing
own
is,
opinion,
black
of
and white
course.
wise, I can say this is not appropriate for that
the
that monarch, the gallery of monarchs is not. I can say that. See, that's where I
Yeah.
get to. It's like that's when you guys talk.
Yeah.
There's certain
It's
aspects
not
of this are black and white, but to just say it's bad.
You can't
is
say
not,
this is all bad.
Yeah,
no.
that's where
But
I
it's
like to.
bad for the royal
Yes,
hall.
yes, that's where for me, and that's where I always get in difficult. That's why I'm a terrible podcaster and writer and all, because I don't want to make because I can find all the I know in my mind there's lots of angles that are so just to say strongly say that yes or no something is wrong is probably not exactly what I want to communicate because I
no.
can see the good parts of it and the bad parts of it but like we go back to there are certain aspects that are black and white, but there are so many more aspects than just that one aspect that are like positive and negative.
Yeah, well, especially if you're a podcaster or you're just someone who's trying to make content for people, you want your audience to think about your stuff. And if you're just delivering it in a black and white format, then they're like, oh.
No,
well,
but then the problem is when I deliver in a nuanced way, it gets like, it's
Befuddled.
like five. Yeah, it gets muddled. What was the point? Because you're trying to bring in too many things and you don't have, it sounds like you don't have an opinion.
No,
you're just muddling
a
through
structure
it.
to it. I mean, you can have your.
I never have a structure to it. I just go off the top of my head. That's why, like I said, that's why I have a problem. That's why I need you here because it gives me some structure. Because I would just go wander off and but this is right, but this part is wrong. But this, right? You've heard me talk
I
about
know.
things for but this part, but you see this part, right? And then, but you see this part too, right? And but then there is a right and wrong in the end. But then you're like, oh my
Okay,
gosh,
so
Dad,
what
that
was
is
your
exhausting.
point? So what is your stance?
Exactly.
I don't. Yeah, sure.
So that's why
Sure.
it's always hard for me to stick to the thing because I always want to see the nuance to it because there always is nuance to things.
Yeah. Well, that's why
even Jackson Pollock, I can see I don't like it. So I still don't like it, but
Yeah.
I can understand.
And you can appreciate what he was trying to do.
I understand what he was trying to do to capture what the process, the movement on on something static.
But for you, for your personal taste,
It's like, why?
No.
No. Come on, man. It's not. It's like the whoo. I don't go, whoa, that's genius.
Not
It's
like with
no.
so-
That's just.
not
It ends
with-
up.
not
It
with, like,
still
the
looks like a
L-shaped
mess.
gallery. Oh yeah.
But like, and I don't see how it actually captured the thing. I mean, I understand what you're saying by capturing it.
But you're not really, because it's still
'Cause it's
you doing it. It's not. Sure. You're capturing your movement. I don't know.
So yes.
Okay. Good job. Oh my God.
Awesome. Thank you for muddling through that with me. But that's how we roll.
Woo! It's lit.
Thanks, Emmy.